For a long time, scientists have embraced several misconceptions about the nature of light. In part 3 of this series, I explained how the fundamental nature of light compensates for variations in relative distance due to motion. In part 4, I showed that the actual speed of light must vary so that the relative speed of light c will always be constant in our current relative situation. Now, I will dispel an apparent misconception that the speed of light c is the universal speed limit. The curve to the right shows the mass of a particle increasing towards infinity as speed approaches c, the speed of light. Because of high-energy particle accelerator research, we know that this equation is accurate. Particle mass really does increase with velocity as predicted, but because scientists never understood the true nature of the fundamentals, they never knew what mass was and why it increased with velocity. They just assumed that if their machines could not accelerate a particle all the way to the speed of light c, then nothing could ever move anything that fast. Hence, the notion that c is the universal speed limit. For a long time, that's what scientists thought about the sound barrier. But they just kept pushing their machines and their knowledge, and eventually they managed to scare a lot of people with their newly discovered sonic booms. It turned out that the sound barrier wasn't actually a speed limit after all. It was just an obstacle to overcome. In order to overcome this presumed universal speed limit, you need to view it as more of an obstacle instead of an actual limit. You need to understand the true nature of mass and why it increases with velocity. A little deeper look into the three fundamental forms of energy will be necessary to make it clear. The energy ocean fills the immensity of space. It is established and maintained by the natural processes of light. Photons of light are the particles that make up the energy ocean, and they lose energy in quantum leaps as they push their way through the other photons that make up the energy ocean. So the energy ocean contains photons of all sizes, from infinitely large to infinitely small. Atoms, indeed all particles, including photons, are tiny tornadoes of energy, spun from the photons that make up the energy ocean. Mass is a measure of the amount of energy that is compressed into the walls of the energy tornado. Photons of energy from the energy ocean, when spun into tiny tornadoes, become atoms. It is the same energy, just in a different form. And that is why mass and energy are interchangeable. That is how Einstein's equation E equals mc squared is implemented in nature at the fundamental level. Our universe is racing through the energy ocean at speed c squared. All of our atoms continue to spin because of this velocity. C squared is what I call a foundational variable. Whatever velocity we are moving through the energy ocean, it establishes our current relative values for mass and energy. In our relative existence, intelligent people trying to understand the fundamentals would eventually discover that the relationship between mass and energy is reasonably characterized as E equals mc squared. But c squared is really just whatever velocity we happen to be moving through the energy ocean. And that's why I call it a foundational variable. Our velocity actually changes as we continually slow down because of the resistance we encounter as we move through the energy ocean. The universe is shrinking. We don't notice this shrinkage because all of the laws of science remain the same regardless of the speed of the observers. That would be us. We continually give up some of our mass just to maintain our existence. Some scientists interpret this as the expansion of the universe. But the universe is really shrinking. It is within the very nature of the tornado to draw surrounding material into its spin. Mass is a measure of how much energy from the energy ocean is included into the spin of the tornado. The rate at which new energy particles are introduced into the tornado is determined by the velocity of the particle through the energy ocean. The greater the velocity, the more particles per second are absorbed and maintained within the tornado-like structure of the atom. So the faster we go, the greater our mass. Well, now that I've explained what mass is and why mass increases with velocity, we can now deal with the universal speed limit myth. A motorcycle operator can enjoy a pleasant wind in his face at 20 miles per hour, but it gets a little uncomfortable at 75. Too much wind and too many bugs in your face. If he installs a windshield, it reduces the amount of wind and bugs that hit your face. If you are traveling in a spaceship and you don't want to deal with mass increases, then you also need a shield, an energy shield. This shield needs to control the rate at which new energy particles from the energy ocean encounter all the atoms that make up the spaceship and its occupants. You control the rate of atomic photon absorption so that it remains at the same level at all speeds. You change the shape of the curve to a flat and level line. No change in mass also means no time dilation, regardless of your velocity. All you have to do is figure out how to get your spaceship moving at multiple speeds of light and how to make the energy shield. Rockets are probably not going to move your spaceship faster than light. You're going to need something with a lot more energy, something like c² energy. It turns out we just happen to be moving through some energy at speed c². Maybe we could just harness some of that. As for making an energy shield, well, it would probably work something like specially designed and arranged energy tornadoes to divert portions of the energy ocean around us as we move through it. Some new insights into how nature uses the fundamentals to manifest electrostatics and magnetics would probably be helpful. Perhaps there is really some kind of a universal speed limit. I'm sure that c is not it. Maybe after we begin pushing ourselves a little faster and further out into space, we will find something else that looks more like a universal speed limit, but hopefully there will be some visionary scientists who will treat it as just another obstacle to be overcome.